Welcome. Today we're looking into a legal story that honestly has been hard to ignore for years. The really long and clearly painful separation between Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt.
Right. It's more than just another celebrity divorce. It's become this marathon of conflict, all happening under this incredibly intense spotlight.
Absolutely. I mean, most people go through separation privately.
Yeah.
Right. It's exhausting enough then. But imagine that. Plus global assets, complicated businesses like that winery, Château Miraval.
And constant public attention, yeah. What we're focusing on today are some recent court filings. They sort of pull back the curtain, not just on the legal stuff, but on the deep emotional cost this whole thing has had.
And what really jumped out, it wasn't some huge sum of money. It was actually a relatively small request, wasn't it? For $33,000 in legal fees tied to that Miraval place.
Exactly. Seems minor in the grand scheme, but it's significant.
So our goal here really is to look past the famous names. We want to find the universal lessons in all this about healing, about setting boundaries when things get tough, and just how do you rebuild after years of emotional chaos?
Yeah, it's almost like these court documents, unintentionally, offer this kind of masterclass in resilience. What does it actually take to find some psychological peace when the fight just won't end?
Okay, let's get into it then. We'd really have to start with that emotional weight. There's this line in the filing, it's simple, but wow, it lands hard. To have such a sudden break from my home and memories has been hard.
It sounds simple, yeah, but it says so much. It highlights that this isn't just about property value or assets. It's about losing history, losing connection.
It's symbolic, isn't it?
Hugely symbolic, especially with Château Miraval. When you look at the details in the filings, you understand its intense importance to them. This wasn't just some vacation house.
Right, the documents mentioned it was where they got married.
Married there, yes. A place where Jolie was pregnant, where they brought their twins home from the hospital. It was loaded with these major life milestones.
Oh, okay. That completely changes the context. It's not just a fancy property. It was like the heart of that whole family era for them.
Precisely. So for the courts, maybe it's an asset on a list. But for the person living it, losing that specific place, a place soaked in memories. It's like losing the physical story of that time.
So a place that was a dream home becomes.
It becomes a symbol of trauma, a painful reminder, the emotional energy tied up in letting go of that space. It's enormous.
And you see how deep that goes in decisions made later. The sources mentioned, and this is quite striking, that the children have apparently never set foot in Miraval again since the separation.
Yeah, that conscious choice, that total avoidance, it just underlines how deep the scars are. The place that should have felt safe became, well, too painful.
Contaminated by the conflict.
Exactly. Sometimes the only way to find stability is to completely cut ties with the symbol of the past. And for anyone listening, the lesson isn't about vineyards. It's about how sometimes you need to mentally disconnect a place, or maybe even people, from the pain they represent. Healing sometimes needs that sharp break.
That really sets up this interesting kind of paradoxical situation that the sources reveal. This huge contrast between massive financial sacrifices made earlier and then this quite small demand years later.
Absolutely. Those early sacrifices were quite significant. The documents show clearly early on, Jolie didn't ask for alimony, didn't take certain money, let Pitt keep several homes.
Which seems really counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
Especially in that kind of high-stakes situation, you'd expect leveraging everything.
You would. But if you think about it through the lens of maybe post-trauma dynamics, it starts to look like a kind of psychological survival strategy.
Also,
Well, the document sort of suggests the hope was if she gave up these big financial things, maybe it would just make him calmer, make the conflict stop. So trying to appease the situation.
kind of. A deep-seated attempt maybe at, people-pleasing or just conflict avoidance. Anything to get some calm, even at a huge material cost. Trading tangible things for the hope of immediate peace.
That's a really powerful way to put it. Trading assets for intangible peace. Okay, but then fast forward. Years later. Now, there's this request for a specific, relatively tiny sum, $33,000 for legal fees.
Right.
I mean, in the context of their wealth and years of litigation. $33,000 is, like you said, almost a rounding error. Why that amount? Why now?
And this is where the symbolism completely overtakes the dollar amount. It's not about the money itself. It feels much more like reclaiming some agency, drawing a line in the sand.
Okay.
Think about it. When a conflict drags on and on, the other side can just keep filing motions, right? Keep forcing responses. The cost of just defending your peace becomes exhausting.
So the legal process itself, the costs, become a weapon, a way to wear the other person down. Exactly. So by asking for this specific small cost to be covered now, it sends a very clear message. It's like saying, enough.
I'm done paying for this.
I've already paid. With my peace, with my emotional energy for far too long. This demand, however small financially, it feels like a refusal. A refusal to let the other side keep imposing these transactional costs on her attempt to find closure. She's not playing the sunk cost game anymore with the legal fees.
Wow. That's actually a brilliant strategy, isn't it? Using a tiny financial request to make a huge emotional statement to regain control.
It shifts the focus. It's
Right.
not about winning the whole property fight anymore, maybe. It's about the cost of having to keep fighting. It's like emotional self-defense, but wrapped up in a legal motion.
And that idea of self-preservation, it brings us to the just.
Mm.
Immense pressure of trying to heal when you're constantly in the public eye.
Right.
For most people listening, if you go through a breakup, you can, change your number, block someone, avoid places. But for them, recovery happens alongside international headlines, court filings, paparazzi everywhere.
That level of exposure just magnifies everything, every struggle, every setback. It takes, frankly, enormous emotional maturity to try and focus inward on healing when the whole world is basically reflecting your trauma back at you 24/7.
So how do you manage that? This is where the sources talk about emotional leadership, right?
Yes, and what that seems to mean in this context is prioritizing long-term stability, especially for the family, over maybe short-term wins or even career things.
So like making strategic choices for the family's well-being.
Precisely. The sources specifically mention that she focused heavily on creating stability for the children, to the point where she apparently declined work for 2 years just to be present, to try and stabilize things at home.
Wow. Declining work for 2 years at that level of a career. That's a huge decision.
It's a staggering choice.
Yeah.
And it totally reframes what we might think of as vulnerability or weakness. Stepping back, pulling back from the fight or from your career path, sometimes that's seen as giving up.
But here, it's presented as the ultimate strategic move, as strength.
It really is. Strength through, like, strategic withdrawal. What these documents show, I think, is that even incredibly successful, powerful people aren't immune to pain, to chaos, and their recovery journey. It's rarely a straight line.
Yeah.
By being transparent about these costs, these massive personal costs in these filings, it highlights a universal struggle, doesn't it? You could be powerful and still be hurting deeply, successful and still struggling, and choosing to prioritize that internal rebuilding, that's incredibly courageous.
I think that makes it all so much more relatable somehow, even with the fame and the wealth being so different.
Yeah.
The core things, the pain, the trying to heal, co-parenting when there's conflict, those are universal.
Yeah.
Just amplified massively by the spotlight.
Exactly. It almost gives the rest of us permission,
Yeah.
Permission to slow down, to focus on stability first when things get chaotic in our own lives.
That's a good point.
And really the synthesis of all this, everything we've looked at, it feels like the main takeaway is that peace of mind. It's not just a nice to have, it's the core asset.
Priceless. Really.
Yeah, totally. And sometimes the bravest and actually the smartest thing you can do is just walk away from a fight. Even if it means giving up something tangible, a house, winning an argument, some financial edge, and just redirecting all that energy into rebuilding your own future.
And that's such valuable encouragement, I think, whether you're dealing with a breakup or maybe a really difficult friendship or just, life throwing things at you. Healing takes time, and peace often comes from letting go, from prioritizing your own energy, not necessarily from winning every single battle or getting that perfect, neat ending on paper.
Well said.
Mm.
And maybe here's a final thought for you to consider, something to chew on. Healing doesn't always mean reconciliation and closure. Closure definitely doesn't require agreement from the other side.
Mm.
Sometimes the real way forward is just releasing what was, accepting the loss fully, and finding your own peace, even if the outcome never quite makes logical sense on paper. That act of letting go, that can be the ultimate act of strength.